Hi, and welcome back to Music and Gear. We have a Schecter. You guys have been asking to see the review on this guitar, and it's time for it. This is a Schecter Sun Valley Shredder with a Sustainiac. It is definitely bright. This guitar was picked up directly at Sweetwater. We made a trip all the way up to their facility, and I played a couple guitars up there, and this is the one that I landed on. I had actually put the Reaper in my box and paid for it, and went back to the hotel room, slept on it, then went back and played this guitar again, and decided to go ahead and pick up the Sun Valley Super Shredder versus the Reaper. So now we're going to get into doing a full review on this guitar. We're going to go over the general fit and finish. We're going to look at the neck, check its relief, the factory action height. Well, in this case, Sweetwater may have altered the guitar because Sweetwater unboxes the guitar. They do some ridiculous amount of point checks. If they find an error, they're supposedly supposed to fix it. So I guess I should say that it is set up the way Sweetwater set the guitar up after it went through their quality control checks at their warehouse. So let's get to it and see what this guitar has to offer. Okay, like we normally do, I'm going to go over the top of the guitar first. This guitar here is a gloss finish, and I'm going to assume this is like a lime green. The finish is very smooth on the guitar. It is polished, but it's not a super polish, but it is a high gloss. I won't call it some of the guitars we review, they're so polished and so glossy, even if you touch it, it puts a mark in the finish. This is high gloss, but it's not been polished to the point where it just gleams, if that makes sense. The top of the body is flat all through here, and they have put an arm carve right here. And this particular arm carve is really sanded into the body. There's really no edge here whatsoever. They have really eased this into the body of the guitar. But it feels like it's right in here is the transition. They have put a round over on the guitar, and this looks like it may be a little older, over a 1/4 inch. Let's look at our gauges here. Here's our 1/4 inch gauge. Yes, it's a little more than a 1/4 inch. Let's try 3/8. And the 3/8 fits rather well. Let's check it here. Yes, this whole section through here is rounded over to 3/8. So starting at the neck pocket, we have a 3/8 inch round over. I'm just running my finger around it, and I'm looking for missteps in the machining. And starting right where my finger is, the radius starts to get a little smaller. This looks to be about a 1/4 here, maybe 3/16. Yep, it's a 1/4 right there. And it goes down to an 1/8 all through here. So this is 1/8, quarter right there, and now it's back to the 3/8. So 3/8 through here, and it feels very smooth. I don't feel any missteps. And that goes all the way to the neck pocket here. I'm not feeling anything strange or peculiar. It feels very smooth. Now let's look at the side of the guitar, the edge. And it is a flat edge. And it is done very well. It is very true and flat. Yep, that's nicely done. Looking at our jack plate here in relation to the radius of the guitar, the jack plate is fitting tight and is flush all the way around. Sometimes you'll see where it'll stick up on the ends on the radius where it doesn't follow the radius quite right. This one is done very well. Going to the bottom side of the guitar, we have a 3/8 radius right from here all the way to here. And it's getting a little tighter right here. It looks like a 1/4 inch around the neck heel joint. Then we have a chamfer right here. And the chamfer is done extremely well. If I look at the radius coming through here, it's blended all the way to the top of the horn. So there's not a strange little transition going on there. It's very smooth and very accurate. Then inside that chamfer to the flat spot, it's about an 1/8 inch round over in there. So it's very smooth. Coming off the horn, going back to the 3/8, all the way around the guitar. Right here is where our belly carve starts, and my finger is following the contour for the belly carve. So it is a large belly carve. It doesn't go far into the body, so the chamfer angle or rake angle is pretty steep. And we can see how much of the body that is left right here. And right through here goes 1/4 inch down to 1/8, and it's blending back to the 3/8 right here. Now they haven't eased this edge like they did the arm carve on the top of the guitar. So you can definitely feel the break in the angle here. Our neck screws are recessed into the body. This one's at least an 1/8 of an inch below. They all look about the same as far as how they're recessed into the guitar. In this bore hole, the edge has been relieved, so it feels very soft. There's no sharp edges. Putting my finger down in the hole, feeling the tops of the screws, there's nothing sharp. They have also, following my finger, come right into this chamfer at this tangent point coming across. That's nicely done. Whoever laid out the programming on the CNC here, they knew what they were doing. This is nicely done when you see these points align. This guitar definitely aligns geometry wise. They've put a chamfer going this way. They've angled the seat cut on the guitar, and that's just to make it more comfy to hold. Now feeling the guitar, it is a little butt heavy compared to the neck, so grabbing it right here, it's not perfectly balanced. But it is comfy. We'll weigh the guitar later, but the guitar does have a little mass to it. It does have some weight. Going to our covers, this cover seems to be mounted well. There's no deflection or bouncing. running my finger across it. Right here it's a good millimeter below, and right here it's flush, right where my finger is. Then a millimeter below, and then flush again right here. And that could be that the screws are over tightened and it's causing a deflection. And when I push on it, it does go down. So if I push on the plate, it's setting down a millimeter. Same here. So that plate is deflecting. And I'm pushing on it very hard. You can hear it on this side. Going over to our electronics cavity. And that one again is setting about a millimeter below the surface. And there is a little bounce to that one. They have the screws on the end and there's nothing here in the center. So right there the plate is moving just a little bit. Now here are our two batteries. We have active electronics and a Sustainiac. So one battery is for the active pickups and the other battery is for the Sustainiac. So feeling the cover, it feels a little firmer than the other active guitars that we've had on the channel. It engages and locks well, and it takes a little effort to pull on the tab to get that to open. So as you're playing it, I don't think you would have to worry about the guitar moving it back and popping the cover open. Let's check this one. Yep, it's the exact same. And like I said, they seem to latch well. There is a little bounce to the cover. And they seem to be nice and tight to the body of the guitar. The only other thing I see here is on our tremolo route, our top plate, they have added the holes here so you can get in and do claw adjustments. I do like that detail. That makes it nice to be able to get in there and do quick adjustments. Now let's go down the neck of the guitar. And these are traditionally cut frets. These frets go all the way out to the edge of the neck, and there's a chamfer on them. And the chamfer on these frets, I'm going to guess, is probably about 30 degrees. And I do feel the edge of the frets. I don't really feel any sharp frets. The edges of the frets have been dressed. Right through here there are a couple that kind of feel like they're sticking out past the neck just ever so slightly. But I'd still say the fretwork is done well as far as the side dressings. It's not cutting my fingers, and if I push really hard on it and I'm really pushing into the neck, yeah, they're okay. Looking at our fingerboard to the neck, they have run this radius all the way around right to the broken edge where the fretboard, the top material, is rounded into the top of the fingerboard. So they've broken this edge all the way down through here. That gives the guitar a broke-in feel, and that takes quite a bit of extra time to do. And this whole edge is broken all the way up through here and all the way back. And like I said, this radius goes all the way up to that broken edge. The feel of the neck is super smooth. This neck, even the transitions here, it is super smooth. Or as I like to call it, it's butter smooth. Our transitions here, yeah, it feels like slippery glass. Right here on this edge, I do feel just a little bit of grit right there. But it is super slick. That's why I'm picking up that grit right there. Everywhere else feels unbelievably smooth, but there is a spot right there. And it feels smooth. It's just not glass smooth like the rest of this neck. I don't know if the camera will pick up on that. But it is really smooth. Something else I like here, the seat cut on the neck. They brought this right up. And you only have, it's about 3/16 of an inch. And the neck is thin. So from the bottom edge of this neck up to the seat, there's really not a lot of space there. It's a thin profile neck. It feels very comfortable. And the access here is very good since they've chamfered the back of the body. Very easy to get up to the higher register notes. We do have inlay dots on the guitar. Get the 3 dots here. It goes down the bottom and then shifts and goes across the top of the fretboard there. And then we have our placement dots across the top here. The tuning keys, they do say something. It looks like they say Schecter. So these are Schecter branded tuning keys. They are not locking tuning keys. The tuning keys on the guitar feel very smooth. I've been demoing this guitar for quite a while. So there's absolutely no reason to upgrade the tuning keys on this guitar. They are just fine from the factory. Our lock nut up here to the neck of the guitar, it is sticking out past the neck on both sides. I'm going to say 0.2 millimeters. It's almost flush, but it is sticking out here and here. And it feels like the same amount, so they do have it centered. Here we have our string tree. So you can tell if it's set properly that if you loosen this and you tune your string and then you lock it, if it goes up or down in tune, that'll tell you whether or not the string tree is set to the proper height. We do have a video on how to set that to prevent that from happening. So I have not checked that. But it is nice when it goes all the way across and it is set at the right location. You don't want it too close to this nut. It needs to follow the angle of the seat cut of the nut over. And looking at the string here to the seat cut of the nut, it's done well. It's in a proper position. Our truss rod adjuster is sitting right here. And I'm looking at the neck route to the route in the guitar. The neck route is a little larger than the route that's actually in the body of the guitar. it looks like the neck route is setting left and right about 1 millimeter on both sides in relation to the route of the guitar. So you do see the green right there. Let's look at how our pickups are in the guitar. Pushing on the Sustainiac, it is mounted firm. It feels like it has more spring on this side than this side. And looking at the pickup on how it sets, it is setting this way in the guitar, so it is not perfectly perpendicular to the top of the guitar. When I push on it, it always returns like this. So it is set askew just a little bit. Looking at our EMG down here, and that one does the same thing, it returns. And that one is setting parallel to the guitar. Let me try it again. And it is returning parallel to the guitar. We do have a pick guard and a cover, and I'm tapping on it, seeing if it bounces or makes a funny noise. And it appears to be setting down tight and even on the guitar. We do have an issue right here. And I had not ever noticed that before. But if we look at our pick guard in relation to the tremolo, right here the pick guard is bowed. It is setting up. Yep, if I really push hard, the whole pick guard on the guitar is bouncing. That might be something that we can resolve when we check the electronics. We'll check these screws and see if the pick guard was set too tight this way. There is a little bit of adjustment there, but it has definitely got a bounce in the center. Now this is a Floyd Rose 1000 with the stainless steel hot rod kit put in it. So the lockers back here are stainless and these adjusters here are stainless. The blocks that are in this are not stainless. I was under the assumption on the hot rod model that these would be stainless as well. They are not. So all you're getting is the stainless set screw and then the lock screw. And I have used the tremolo. All the fine tuners adjust well, and I have not had a problem with tuning stability issues. It works well. Let's look at our volume. And the volume knob feels smooth. If you're a pinky player, it is definitely in the right location. It's easy to roll down and kind of roll the volume up and back. It is not friction free, but it is very smooth. It's firm enough to where it's not going to dance around if you're dancing on stage, but yet easy enough where it's very easy to move with your pinky. Our tone knob feels smooth as well. There's no issues there. Going over our three-way switch. And checking for jiggle. In the bridge position, it's very good. In the center position, there's just a little jiggle. In the upper position, very tight. This is a very nice three-way switch. It engages very solid in every position. That's a high quality switch. Now we do have some Sustainiac switches here. These are mini switches. And there is a little jiggle in the first mini switch. It's not bad, but there is a little jiggle there. But it has a nice solid firm engagement. Checking our second one. And this is only a 2-position switch. Our first one is a 3-position. So our 2-position mini switch, it's about the same amount of jiggle. They feel fine. I don't see any issues with those. Now looking at our strap buttons, these are not the bugle buttons. I prefer these buttons over the other ones. It does appear to be in the center of the horn, and it is tight on the guitar. Looking at our bottom button, and again it appears to be in the center line of the neck coming back. And it's nice and tight to the body. One thing we missed is the feeling on the top of the headstock. I can just barely feel the Schecter logo running my finger across it. Now let's look at the neck pocket here. I do see a crack right here. It is a consistent crack. These light colors really show cracks. It is probably 1/128th of an inch. It's a very small crack. Here the neck is definitely tight here, and then we have that 1/128th of an inch crack right here. They have broken those edges. And then looking at how it's set in the guitar, it appears to be setting tight in the pocket. But a very thin shim really won't show itself right here. So it is possible that there could be a shim in there. But it looks tight and even to the guitar. Feeling the offset here, the body is sticking out just a little bit right here, and it's almost perfectly flush right here. And that's because this radius, it doesn't truly go 90 to the neck. There is a slight angle here before it goes into this round part of the seat cut. It looks nice. I think that's going to pretty much cover our fit and finish. Now let's get some gauges out and check this neck. Alright, now I have the guitar up on our stool, and we're going to go over the neck. We're going to set the gauge on the neck, and we're going to check the factory relief, the way it was set up from Sweetwater. Now I'm assuming this is a 25.5. Set the gauge on the neck, set the guitar up. And this guitar does have a little bit of relief. Looking at it, I'm going to say it's got probably 0.5 millimeters of relief, maybe 0.4. Now we're going to use our Sustainiac action gauge. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to double check the action height here on the 12th. And to the bottom of the low E facing the frets at the 12th we have 0.060. On the high E we have 0.055 on the high E at the 12th. So that's lower than average for a factory setup. And everyone's favorite part, yep, you guessed it, fret rockering. I'm going to start at the top of the neck and I'm going to go into squirrel mode, and I'll go out of squirrel mode if I find a bad fret. And 100% spot on. I do want to say something though. I have reviewed probably 35, 40 guitars. This is the first guitar that I had to hold on to the fret rocker. The frets on this guitar are so slick and so polished that the fret rocker wants to wiggle around on the frets. These frets are gleaming. When I say gleaming, they are gleaming. Super shiny and super slick. Literally, the fret rocker just wants to slide around on the neck. The frets are so well polished. Truly, to date, I will say these are the best frets and the best feel that I've gotten going across the frets of any guitar that we've reviewed to date. Truly, I mean, it is just slick. So if you like frets that are just super polished, glass smooth, that would be this guitar. Looking at the frets in the light, yeah, they are shiny. This fret right here, I do see one or two small marks up by the low E. And that's it. The rest of them are just like a piece of glass. It's very well done. Looking at the side of our fret, the way they've done it, all they've done is rounded the edge of the fret. They've broken that edge. And it is very smooth when I run my finger across it. They have not rounded up and over and onto the fret to decrease the amount of fret space that you have. So there would be no issues with you bending the string and the string going off the fretboard. It has a very steep chamfer and they've only broken that edge. It's nicely done. Okay, normally I go through and get some measurements on the neck, but since we're going to be taking the neck off the guitar anyway, I figured that would be a better time to do it. So what I've done now is I have the Robertson strobe tuner plugged into the guitar, and we're going to check it before removing the neck and the strings that was set on the guitar from Sweetwater. So we're going to start out with our low E. And there's our low E. Low E on the 12th. Open. Let's give it a little bit of a tune. There we go. Open. First fretted note. Actually, that's the 12th. Open. 12th. So it looks to be just a fraction on the flat side at the 12th. Open. First fretted note. And you can see it's definitely sharp. It's going up to the F sharp occasionally. Open. First fretted note. Yeah, it's definitely sharp. There's our A. Give it a little bit of a tune. Open. 12th. Open. 12th. That one's very, very close. Open. First fretted note. And our A sharp is sharp as well. Open. First fretted note. There's our D. Give it a little tune. There we go. 12th. Open. 12th. Open. I'd say that's extremely good. First fretted note. And just a little sharp. Open. First fretted note. There's our G. Just a little turn. G on the 12th. Again, very good. Open. 12th. Open. First fretted note. Just a little sharp. Open. First fretted note. There's our B. B on the 12th. Again, extremely good. Maybe just a fraction on the flat side. Open. First fretted note. Just a fraction sharp. Open. First fretted note. There's our high E. High E on the 12th. Again, very good. First fretted note. And just a fraction sharp. Open. First fretted note. All in all, I'd say the intonation on this guitar is set extremely well. I wouldn't expect Sweetwater to do a nut adjustment. This nut, I believe, needs some material taken off the low E side. I have not removed it to see if there's a shim under the nut, but the nut definitely needs to be lowered a little bit on the low E. That may correct our high E as you move the nut this way. So I don't think I would remove any material on the high E side. I would just remove some material on the low E side to see if you could get that first fretted note a little closer. Now what I want to do is I want to go through and I want to check the individual fretted notes down the neck just to check the guitar. We'll start out on our low E. Definitely mostly sharp down the fretted notes. There's our A. And our A string is mostly sharp down the fretted notes as well. There's our D. And our D string is the same, mostly sharp down the fretted notes. There's our G. And our G string is the same, mostly sharp on average down the fretted notes. The B is a little closer. I think there was a few more sharp notes than flat. But notice on the 12th, it's reading just a fraction flat. There's our high E open. And the high E is the best of all the strings if you're setting the intonation to an average. I would say Sweetwater set this guitar by the 12th because it is almost perfect on the 12th all the way across. And that's dependent on how you want to set the guitar up. I've set them up both ways and it depends on the client. But I would say Sweetwater did a great job of checking this guitar out as it went through the process and making sure the guitar was set up properly out of the box. Okay, we have the scale on the bench and we're going to get a total weight of the guitar. The two 9 volts are installed, so the weight of the batteries are in the guitar. So in grams, we're reading 3,914 grams. In pounds, 8 pounds, 10.1 ounces. Alright, we're now at the part where I'm going to take the strings off the guitar. We're going to separate the neck off the guitar, look at the neck pocket, and then we're actually going to get some measurements on the neck. While we have the guitar apart, we're going to take the body and pull the pick cover and the bottom covers off and really take a look at the electronics. First, let's get the strings off this guitar. Hold in there good. Now I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not, but the E string and the B string both went down below the retaining block and then under. They had went in and put a little corner on it. I don't know if they pushed it in and it just a little bit got underneath of it, and when they tightened it, it locked underneath. But I'll tell you what, you would never have to worry about those strings ever coming out. I kind of doubt that was done on purpose. Alright, we have the strings off. I'm going to just loosely tighten these up just so they don't go anywhere. And I have retightened the nuts here to capture these string blocks into the tremolo so they don't fall out. So now we're going to flip the guitar over. And we're going to take the neck off this guitar. And there's what we see. And already right off the bat, I don't know if you can see that, but the neck has a crack in it. Right here. So this screw hole was evidently a little too small, and when they run the screw in, it did crack the neck. That is not good. It doesn't go all the way through, but it is cracked. there is a substantial lip as well on these holes. So I would say the neck was not properly drilled, pre-drilled for that size screw. Looking at our neck pocket here, there is no shim. And the rear washers have a flat shelf. So let's flip the guitar over. One of them has fallen out. But what I do see, we don't see any shims in the bottom of the hole. So the programming for these 4 holes must have been correct. We have done a guitar when we pulled these out, there was a ton of shims underneath there to kind of balance these out to get them flush. They have not done that on this guitar. But they do set below the surface. And that one fits very loose, so it keeps falling out. The forward screws in the neck are a little shorter than the screws in the rear of the neck. So there are 2 different size screws going on. The neck pocket itself feels very clean, very even. And you can see the tape line here where what it could be is they may have made a fixture that goes right here. Then they put the screws in the bottom of the frame into the fixture to hang the guitar. That could also be what was going on there. All in all, it's not horrible. There is a little bit of particulate right here. I don't know if that's the masking that was left over in the corner of the route. And it has had some scraping done. That doesn't look bad. The screw's pulled out too. What concerns me is this neck. Now this is easily fixable. Before I reassemble the guitar, I'm going to take this downstairs and I'm going to put some tight bind 2 down in this crack, and I'm going to clamp this together overnight. Something else you can do, if you can see where the end of the crack is, to prevent that crack from going any further in the neck, you can get a 1/16 inch drill bit, go right to the end of the crack and drill a hole right there. Then fill this in with glue, and that'll prevent that crack from ever traversing any further. Drummers do the exact same thing on their cymbals. When their cymbal starts to crack, they drill a hole. And what that does is that eases the pressure and it prevents that crack from getting any bigger. So when I take this downstairs, I'll clean up this ridge here in these 4 spots and get this clamp back together properly. Let's get some measurements on the neck since we have it off. I'm going to set the guitar body over here. Let's take a good look at this guitar neck. Up at the nut, it is coming in at 42 millimeters. At our 12th, we have 51 millimeters. And at our 24th fret, we have 57 millimeters. Okay, now we're going to get some thicknesses on the neck. I'm going to come right here behind our first fret. And it looks like it's reading 19.25. Now let's measure from the top of our fret. And it looks like it's reading 20.75. So that would be 1.5 millimeters on the fret. Let's go down to our 12th and get a thickness wood to wood. And that looks like 22 millimeters. It's kind of hard to see the line, but it looks like it's right at 22. So let's measure it to the top of the fret. And it looks like about right. It's coming in 23.4. So that sounds about right. So it's looks like it's about 1.5, 1.4 millimeter thickness on the frets. And if we look at our neck, where it sweeps in for our seat cut is right here. So it'd be our 13th, right at our 15th fret is where the transition starts to go to our seat cut. Okay, now we're going to get some pickup readings. We're going to start off in our bridge position. We do have two switches here for our Sustainiac. In this position, the Sustainiac is off. This is a three-way switch for the Sustainiac. This is normal vibration mode up towards the bridge. All the way down is a more intense harmonic mode, and then in the center they claim this is a mixed mode between the two. So in our bridge position and the Sustainiac off, our volume up and our tone up, we have 22.20. If we turn the Sustainiac on, it does absolutely nothing. If we go to our center position, that should be a mix between our humbucker and the single coil in the Sustainiac. We have 12.08. If we turn the Sustainiac on, that jumps up to 22.20. Just our single coil next to our Sustainiac in the off position is reading 26.50. If we turn the Sustainiac on, it's dropping to 23.26. Now, most of those readings in my little squirrel brain make sense, except for this position. When you turn the Sustainiac off, the reading goes up, and when you turn it on, it goes down. So I don't know if the field the Sustainiac is generating is interrupting the coil on the single coil since it's right next to it, because in our bridge position, when we turn on and off the Sustainiac, it doesn't really seem to affect it. You can see that it does jump a little bit when you switch it, but it always returns to 22.20. So we're going to have to open up the guitar and look at the wiring. There are some pots on the back of the printed circuit board, evidently, where you can change the gain on some of these settings, and it does have a volume for this single coil that's next to the Sustainiac. That's according to the directions. We'll open it up and see what we find. Alright, I now have the guitar turned upside down. We're going to take the 4 screws out of the rear cover and look at the electronics from the bottom side. And that cover plate is on there. Yeah, that's a little too tight. I think part of our problem with our warping plates, we may find that all of these plates are miscut. Yeah, that plate is miscut by at minimum a 32nd. We can also see, looking at the plate, you can see right here. You see right here, someone has done some sanding work on this plate. That is not a standard tooling mark. You should see these little ribs, and those little ribs are from the either 2-bit or 3-blade down spiral bit that they're using to cut this out on the CNC. But if we look here, there's lines going across this plate. So this has been put on a machine and sanded a little bit. Same with here. I see lines going through the plastic in this direction. I don't see the lines going this way for the teeth engagement of the spiral bit. We can see here, this isn't a true radius. If we look at how this fits, see how that's a bad fit in the corner? See how this radius doesn't align? That is not from the CNC. Someone has doctored onto that a little bit, trying to get it to fit properly. So what we see in here is the electronics for the Sustainiac. And if I understand things correctly, I'm looking at the sheet here, and this is the sheet with the Sustainiac. Okay, so if we orient that to the board, this would be our neck pickup volume. This is our harmonic mode switch, and then the gain for the harmonic, for the Sustainiac itself, how much harmonic presence it has. We can also see there's some debris in here. And the route itself, feeling it, isn't horrible. There's a lot of finish on this guitar. I noticed that in the neck pocket. There's a tremendous amount of finish on this guitar. You can feel the buildup of finish along the edges, where the finish pooled up and then dried. Let's take our jack out right here and let's look at our connections on our jack. And this is a solid connection. We can see right here, this connection here, there's quite a bit of solder. So that connection looks good. You flip it over, there's no connection on that side. I don't know how much space we have in there. I don't want to, doesn't feel like we have that much space. No, doesn't feel like there's a lot of space. Let's see if we can get eyes on it at an angle. So we look at it like that, we can see down in there. All the connections look like they were at temperature. And then looking at our connections here on the board, this connection was at temperature. This one's a little dull, but definitely at temperature. These connections look okay. And these push into place. So we don't have to be too concerned with that. These are our battery connections going into our battery compartment. And if we look in our battery compartment here, I don't see any screws here. That's what these holes are for. These holes are actually for screws. So I'm not sure how they're retaining that in there, if they're just using the compression of the route to hold that in place. It's kind of looking that way. What they may have done here is this route is routed tight, and there could be just a little bit of adhesive applied to the guitar, and then this is pushed in. Let's check the next one. And that one's the exact same way. There's no screws in the retainer holes. Make sure you orient this right. Plus goes to the plus side. And since we're underneath here, let's look at our grounding to our bridge. And as I was loosening that, this continued to buckle and move. And again, the unit is cut way too tight. And here I'm looking for the exact same evidence that it was sanded. I am seeing little burrs in ears from the machining. Yes, this has been hit with a sander as well. So they evidently had a problem here. And I could be completely wrong, but there's a lot of finish on this guitar. So I'm thinking what it is this plate is spec'd at X dimension. The CNC programmer, whoever did the CAD file, laid this pocket out and maybe only allowed 1 millimeter of clearance, maybe 0.5 on either side. And that's not enough clearance once the finish goes down on the guitar. There's a lot of finish on this guitar. So if your finish is 0.5 millimeters on both sides, now you've gained 1 millimeter, and it is tight. You can see that it will not fit between the route. So again, we have another plate that is not correct. And in this case, I'm not going to call it the plate's problem. This is a programming issue in this coding for this pocket that they've routed. In here, we can see our springs, and they've chosen to go to the 3 center locations. You can see the ground connection here. This connection has a really nice sheen to it. There is a lot of solder. They never trimmed this off. See how this was pre-tinned? We'll go ahead and do that. Someone should have come in here and just trimmed it, just like that, to remove that piece. We can see our brass block here, and it is marked 32 fluid rows on the back, but it is a standard block. It's not an upgraded block. Looking at our routing in here, they have put a ramp in the route, starting right here. If you look, this is parallel to the body, and then starting right here, they've angled it. Not quite sure why they would do that, but it is part of the program. And we can see a step from the top route right here. And I see quite a bit of particulate and unfinished corners from when the finish was put down on the guitar. I call this route hair. A lot of times that can be caused by a dull bit and the wood gets hairy. And instead of sanding that out, they just sprayed the finish over it. We can also see a tremendous amount of tear out right here. And that is from the CNC pass. Most likely a dull bit. We can see it here as well. A lot right through here. And particulate in the pocket. Alright, I now have the guitar flipped over. We're going to take the screws out of the top pick guard and check out the electronics underneath. Alright, pop this out. And it's a tight fit as well. So here's our electronics. We do see micro pots. There's a lot of solder right here, but there's a nice sheen to that connection. And there's quite a bit of solder here and here. Nice sheens. And they have run a wire from here over to the ground side of the pot. This tab isn't long enough to bend over to reach the pot. This connection has a nice sheen to it. Looking at our connections on our switch, they all look decent. We can see our twisted wire here, they've tinned so it doesn't fray. And we can see the quick connect connection on the EMG. And there's the back of our Sustainiac. Both springs are standardized, they're not cone springs. And we do have a little bit of shielding tape right where the electronics are. And this is most likely shielding paint here as well, this black. We can see our ground wire coming across and going in right here. And again, here's more evidence of that finish buildup. Looking at our routes, I'll lay this back down here. Routes don't look horrible. We can see right here, this radius, that's where the machine come down and started its path. Come down, and there's just a lot of finish built up. It's a very thick finish on this guitar. We can see the secondary pass here, and where they've went a little deeper here for the three-way switch. And all this is stuck to the finish. There's quite a bit of debris underneath the pickguard. You can see it here as well. Quite a bit of debris under the pickguard. Towel has dropped off, so we're going to get our towel back under the guitar. So when this plate is sitting in here like this, the route right here in the body for this pickup if we move this back and forth, guarantee you that's rubbing. Yep, that's what it's doing. So this flange right here under this pickup is hitting the route when this hole aligns here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to pull it forward. When that goes in, you have to move the pick guard forward for that to align. Because in reality, I don't know if you can see that right here, how this pick guard is warped. It really shouldn't do that. And these holes align. See, it's misdrilled. When we get this to align here and there, you can see how this hole is off. And that is also kicking. Let's push it that way. Yep. So when I push the pick guard this way, there's an interference issue. And that constant pressure is what's causing our pick guard here to deflect and warp over time. It does not want to go forward this way to align to these holes. It's under pressure. I'm having to force the pick guard forward. So something in there isn't aligning properly to get these holes to align. And that's what's causing this deflection. A lot of times you don't know your guitar until you take it apart. And this is proof of that. Okay, we're now ready to start reassembling the guitar. I have repaired the guitar neck. If we look at the back of the neck, we can see the small hole that I drilled. That hole is precisely at the end of the crack, and that relieves the pressure of the crack. I have also put tight bind 2 down inside the crack. Then I've clamped it for 48 hours to hold it. After that, I went through and scraped and refinished the back of the neck. I sanded it with 1200, well first 800, then 1200, and put 1 coat of tried and true on it. That also eliminated the ridges here from them using the screw that was actually too large for the pre-drill bit they used. I have chamfered just a little bit the hole. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and start putting the screws back in the pick guard. And remember, we did have an issue with the pick guard as far as clearance. So I'm just going to push it over and reinstall it the way it was from the factory. Back, but I want to show you what's happening as I'm putting these screws in. Now they're not tight, I just have them started. But if we look at this hole right here, we can see that the pick guard hole doesn't align to the hole in the guitar. And that issue is because this pick guard is in contact with something inside, and I'm having to force the pick guard that way to get it to align. Now none of the screws are tight, so I'm going to try to shift the guitar over. And I'm going to try to pull the guard and then tighten just a few of them. All right. I'm going to roll it this way. I found the screws for our jack. And you know what? This plate is just so wrong. I'm not even going to attempt to put it back on the guitar. It is literally a 1/16 of an inch too wide. So I will have to take this downstairs and put it on a flatbed sander and grind a 32nd of an inch off of both sides. So now let's just lightly reinstall our neck. And if you notice these screws, it is done correctly. I can push that screw all the way in. Same with that one. That allows you to get a very nice tight connection between the body and the neck. Let's check our long screws. And that does the same. I'm able to push it right up and then push it down. And that one. So I'll just leave those two right there. Grab the neck. And the neck pocket is quite tight. All I want to do is start the screws. Now the neck on the guitar is not tight. There's two ways of doing your neck alignment. We can find center of our nut up here and put a mark, and find center between our two posts and put a mark, and put a line all the way down the instrument. Right here we measure from that line to either side of the neck and center it. Or you can cheat. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to install the low E and the high E string and run those down to our tremolo, and I'm going to use those as our neck alignment tool. And I'm going to move the neck back and forth until we have the same space from the side of our low E to the side of the neck, from the side of the high E to the neck, to where that is congruent. That space is exactly the same. So I'm going to go get a set of strings and we'll get to that part. All right, here are the strings that we're installing. I've already got my low E here. I'm going to cut the ball end off. And I believe that's a 3mm on the back. Okay, I now have the high E and low E string on the guitar. So I'm going to look down the neck, and we want to double check that we have the neck on the guitar properly. Looks like the neck needs to go this way. Yes. So it needs to roll like this. and that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the bolts really good and finish stringing up the instrument. Okay, I now have the guitar restrung and completely reassembled, and I've reset the intonation to an average. Sweetwater does set up the guitars on their multi-point inspection, and we did that earlier, and I said that I thought it was set to the 12th. After doing an average, I only had to change 2 strings, and I only changed them very little to do an average. Granted, we did have the neck off the guitar, and there's no guarantee that it went right back exactly where it was. But I still want to say I believe the guitar was extremely well set up from Sweetwater. Right now, I have the guitar plugged into my Applied Research Technology preamp. It is running into an AMR tube sweetener, then into a BBE, then into a ProValve 6L6 power amp, into 4 Greenback Celestion drivers. If I do any clean at all, it's going to be very little. If you're buying this guitar, most likely you're not buying it to play country. This is a rock and roll guitar, so we're just going to go straight to the crunch and high gain stuff. Okay, that's going to conclude our small demo on the Schecter. This is where we get into our final thoughts on the guitar. We did find some issues with it. The first issue was they did not pre-drill the neck with a large enough bit, and when they put the screws through the body to attach the neck, yep, it cracked the neck. I did repair it, but that's something that you don't want to see on a $1,000 instrument. You don't want to see that they did not pre-drill the neck properly and the screws broke or cracked the maple neck. The next issue we found is there's a tremendous amount of finish on this guitar. So much so that this plate and this plate were fitting so tightly in it when they screwed it in, eventually they started to buckle. Our next issue we found was the top pick guard. It is in contact with something in here and they forced it into place, and that has caused this to warp right here. I put it back together the exact same way. The good news is I did contact Sweetwater, and within, I'm going to say 6 working days, I got an envelope from Schecter Guitar Research, and they have put parts in here for me to repair this guitar. One brand new pick guard, and a new tremolo rear cavity cover. At the time that I contacted Sweetwater, I was unaware of the third cover being wrong. So I sent them 4 pictures of each cover plate, and no problem at all. Sweetwater reached out to Schecter, and Schecter directly mailed the components to me. That'll be on a later video. We're going to try to install these on the guitar and see, was it a plastics issue? Okay. Or is it the routes on the guitar causing the problem? Right now, I don't know. I have not taken the new parts out and tried to put them on the guitar. If you've bought one of these guitars and you've had a similar experience with the plastics warping on the guitar, leave us a comment down below. On a $1,000 instrument, you really shouldn't have that problem. Did you buy one of these guitars and you've taken the neck off of it? Have you seen that the neck was cracked due to them not pre-drilling that screw, the hole for the screw large enough and forcing it in place and cracking the neck like this guitar had. Leave a comment down below. If you bought one and you've had no issues with it, you know, I want to hear from that too. It's a $1,000 instrument. Other people thinking about buying this guitar need to hear from you. My thoughts on it, it's a great playing guitar. The fret work on the guitar is fantastic. The general setup from Sweetwater was fantastic. It's a really mean guitar to play. It wants to be played hard and fast. I am not near the musician that this guitar really needs behind it to show what it is capable of doing. It is really a nice guitar. It just has some issues, or at least this particular one had some issues. And I want to hear from everyone. Did you have issues like I had, or, you know, did you get a good one? Anyway, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel. The membership is going up, and it makes me feel really good when I see that membership count go up. It also makes me feel good when you all say, hey, we like the highly detailed videos that you're doing. It's something different, something that we haven't seen on YouTube before. That's really what I'm shooting to do. I'm trying to do a more detailed review on these instruments so you have the information on whether or not you want to purchase it. Anyway, smash the like button, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Anyway, thank you for clicking on the video.